Wall Street wants to keep it in the dark. They want to make it mysterious because they don't want us to be here making money that they can be making. So I think you really need to just get the education that you need and spend the time and effort, and your life will change for the better.
Absolutely. And how many of you want to be able to change your life? And if you could generate an extra $100 a day, would that do it for you? Or $200 a day? I mean, think about it like this, listeners. If you could generate $200 a day, there's 5 days in a week. That's $1,000 a week. Let's say you take off 2 weeks a year, one for your birthday, one for holidays. That's an additional 50 grand a year in income. And you could do that from home, on your cell phone, on your laptop, under an umbrella next to your pool. And that's the beauty about trading and investing these days. You know, if you're old school, if you used to trade back in the 80s, early 90s, you know, the technology has changed tremendously. You know, you could automate all your investments and trades to execute before you leave the house to go to work, or you could do this really anywhere. And I have students of all walks of life who are coming in because they want to make that change. And most of the students coming in here, they have very little or no experience in the markets, but they're coming here for a reason. Why? Because they want to make a change. They want to do something different.
This has been the Trader's Edge Radio Show, brought to you by Online Trading Academy in South Florida. If you're tired of losing money in your mutual funds or 401ks just because the market goes down, or if you're looking for a way to make extra money on top of your full-time job, learn the right way to make trades and how banks and institutions are making money in up, sideways, and down markets with the patented rules-based strategy taught only at Online Trading Academy. This is the only trading campus in South Florida. Call now to attend a free class to see how it works and if it's right for you. Bring a friend. Free half-day classes are in Broward and now our new location in Palm Beach. Online Trading Academy. Call now, 954-668-2510. That's 954-668-2510.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
It's Thursday night, and you're grabbing drinks with some friends. Started off with a pitcher for the table, which quickly becomes two. There's pool. And there's the photo booth.
All right, everybody squeeze in. Say cheese!
Followed naturally by an order of wings. And another.
Can we get some extra ranch sauce?
Then there's the ceremonial nightcap.
So what are we doing this weekend?
And lastly, it's back to the car, which, if you're buzzed, could be the most expensive night of your life. Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Lupus. It's one of the cruelest, most mysterious diseases on Earth. Lupus strikes without warning, can ravage any part of the body, and has no known cause and no known cure. Its health effects range from a skin rash to a heart attack. Lupus is an unpredictable and misunderstood disease that's difficult to diagnose, hard to live with, and a challenge to treat. Help us solve the cruel mystery. We're the Lupus Foundation of America, the only national force devoted to solving the mystery of lupus. We lead the fight to improve the quality of life for all people affected by this devastating disease. To learn more about lupus and how we can help those who suffer from its brutal impact, visit us online at lupus.org or call the Lupus Foundation of America at 1-800-558-0121. That's 1-800-558-0121.
Are you thinking about getting your GED diploma? Well, here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we've got a number of pep talks that can motivate you.
Sometimes things don't always turn out the way you want them to.
You know that feeling? People look at you and don't believe in you.
You want some gentle encouragement.
Then you're on your way to your GED diploma and a better life.
But I know they're probably just a little bit nervous.
You can find it in yourself.
to take that first step.
You can improve your future. You can do this. I know you can.
You need to start pushing yourself.
Now get your game face on and take the first step towards a better life. Hurry up! Don't make me repeat myself.
Whatever level of motivation you need to get your GED diploma, we've got a pep talk that's right for you. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org for your pep talk and find free GED classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education, brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
It only takes a minute to find out if you may have prediabetes, and you can do it at doihaveprediabetes.org. But you're probably not going to. Nope. I'm sure you've got a perfectly good excuse. Kids, work. I get it. You're busy. So what better time than now? Let's begin. Raise one finger if you're a man. Ladies, none yet. Oh, count in your head if you're driving. Now, 3 more fingers for everyone over 60, 2 over 50, 1 over 40, 1 more if you're not physically active, another finger if anyone in your family has type 2 diabetes, another if you've got high blood pressure. If you're overweight, raise another finger, 2 if you're very overweight, and 3 if you're really overweight. You've just taken the world's first audio prediabetes test. And if you're holding up 5 or more fingers, visit doihaveprediabetes.org or talk to your doctor. There's no excuse because prediabetes can be reversed.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its pre-diabetes awareness partners.
Talk 1470 is WWNN Pompano Beach and 95.3 FM W237BD Boca Raton. The Health and Wealth Radio Network. 1470 AM and 95.3 FM. The Health and Wealth Radio Network. Listen for Health Connection Radio with Jay Foster every single day at 2 p.m. WNN.
A bad back, heartburn, low libido, stiff joints, not sleeping well, got allergies, need to lose weight? If you want to feel better, please tune into my Health Talk show Sunday mornings at 10, the Dr. Bob Martin Show on Talk 1470 WNN.
Talk here. Talk there. Talk 1470 AM and 95.3 FM. The Health and Wealth Radio Network. WNN.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teele. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info. I'm your host, Marcia Teele. I'm so happy that you could join us this evening. We have a wonderful show for you. Whether you're listening to us on local radio here in South Florida, I want you to know that we just added FM, so if you're on 1470 AM, you can also switch your dial to 95.3 FM and listen to us there also. In addition, you can watch us live stream on the website, caregiversolutions.info. So whatever you're doing, whether you're driving in your car or you're home, in your office, I'm glad that you could join us today. This is the show just for you, the family caregiver. If you're caring for someone that has some type of memory loss, Alzheimer's, or some other related dementia, then this show is for you, the family caregiver, to learn about what caregiving involves, what is the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's, what are some of the tips that you can learn to make your caregiving journey a little bit better. We bring the experts to you. We ask the questions and you get the answers. not only do we interview professionals such as elder law attorneys, geriatric care managers, social workers, psychiatrists, psychologists, all kinds of people in the healthcare field who can lend their expert information to you, but also we actually have real life caregivers that we bring here to share their story. There's nothing better than listening to a person who is either walking in your shoes or has walked in your shoes. This is the best way to learn because they really are truly the ones that understand because they're in the trenches just like you are. Arden Courts is our national sponsor. We want to thank them for sponsoring this program. And I'd like to tell you a few minutes about Arden Courts because they really care about not only the person that has dementia, because actually, memory care is all they do. They were actually designed for that purpose, and there's about 52 Arden Courts scattered across the United States. Here in Florida, we have 10 of them. There are 52 communities nationwide that provide support groups, that provide educational seminars, that provide respite care, that provide lots of resources and information for caregivers. And in addition to that, they actually want to give you a free resource, a book. This book is called The 36-Hour Day. This is a book that was written by Dr. Peter Rabins. It is an excellent guide for caregivers. It is for people caring for someone who has Alzheimer's disease, related dementias, and memory loss. This is the best guide of its kind, according to the Chicago Sun-Times. And this book is chock full of wonderful information to educate the caregiver, the would-be caregiver, or the caregiver right now, no matter which stage of caregiving that you're in. There's something here to help you. So Arden Courts would like to offer this book to you for free, and all you have to do is call Arden Courts on their toll-free number. And that number is 888-478-2410. Again, the number is 888-478-2410. Call them, let them know that you heard about this offer on the Caregiver Solutions program, and they'll be happy to get your name and address and make sure that you get this book mailed directly to you. It's, again, a wonderful resource. It's free, and I highly recommend everyone that's a caregiver to read this book. So speaking of caregiving, I have a few questions to ask you. Are you caring for an older adult who has dementia? Do you have parents who live far away from you and you worry about what really goes on when you're not there? Are you aware that people with even mild dementia or mild cognitive impairment are vulnerable for exploitation or abuse? Are you considering placing a loved one in an assisted living facility but scared about how they would react? And are you not sure how to handle making a transition into a memory care community and you need some guidance? If any of these questions interest you or they pique your interest because you've been thinking about them, then this show is especially for you. We're talking today to a daughter whose dad suffers not only with Alzheimer's disease, but he also has a dual diagnosis of dementia from vascular dementia. So, you may have heard and on another program that we discussed that it's actually not uncommon for someone to have a dual diagnosis of onset Alzheimer's plus a dementia related from a cardiovascular stroke, which they call like a vascular dementia. So it doesn't matter what kind of dementia a person has, it's memory loss, and that's what you're dealing with, is a person who is confused, who is not remembering things, who can't take care of themselves, who can't function, who can't do the things that they used to do, and they need care. And so if this is your case or somebody that you know sounds familiar in this particular situation. We're going to be talking about these things because a daughter who doesn't live in Florida, whose dad resides in Florida, and starts suffering some of these conditions and have related behaviors because of it, it can be pretty scary. So today we're going to be discussing all of these things and more. And it's my pleasure today to have with me here in our studio, and by the way, we are live from Boca Raton, Florida. I'd like to welcome Robin and Nick. Hi, guys.
Hi, Marcia.
Thank you for being here today.
Thanks. It's our pleasure.
Now, Robin and Nick live in Oregon, but they are here in South Florida visiting, and they've agreed to come today to be on our program to share their story with you. And boy, do they have a story. Thank you guys for coming in and being willing to open up your lives, your heart, and share everything with us. I know it's not always easy, but I know that you're very passionate about helping people, and it's very important to you to let others know what you've gone through, and perhaps someone could learn by your experience. No, that's very good. So let's start just in a few minutes before we go to commercial break to lay some groundwork here. So tell me, your dad is how old right now?
Tomorrow is his birthday.
Ah, happy birthday, Dad. And by the way, we're referring to Dad as Dad, and Robin and Nick are Robin and Nick. We're not doing last names to protect their privacy a little bit. So Dad's going to be 90?
88.
88. He's going to be 88 years old. Okay.
Arbor Day.
Yes, yes. And he was living in South Florida,
yes.
And you and Nick live in Oregon.
Yes.
And so what happened? Did Dad lose his wife? He became a widower?
Yes. So my mom died 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad always wanted that companionship. So we were not terribly surprised that very, very shortly after my mom died, my dad got a girlfriend.
Okay. That's not uncommon,
yeah.
Like you said, you need a companionship.
And since we were so far away, it was easier for him to, have that companionship, and we understood that. And so my sister and I were very supportive of that. And his girlfriend moved in with him, even though she had her own place just 2 or 3 miles away.
Did she move in with him right away?
Yes.
Now,
that was surprising.
That was surprising. Okay. Now, before all this happened, did Dad have any cognitive impairment issues that you were aware of?
No, but I've learned now that he was pretty high functioning, and so as one of the neurologists told us, if you start out high functioning, it's that much more difficult sometimes to detect the memory loss issues.
Mm-hmm.
He was very good. He was a sales executive in his career, and so he was always very good at kind of cajoling people and influencing people. And so he was using a lot of tools to verbal cues to get people to finish his sentences when he didn't remember the words, and having other people finish some of his stories.
So he could talk the talk because he was that salesperson. So he could probably talk circles around other people.
Yes.
And he's very good at what we call covering up.
Yes.
Okay. So the girlfriend moved in shortly after they met.
Yes, and he was so happy, and my sister and I were just so thrilled to see him so happy. I think looking back now, of course, hindsight's always 20/20. We probably should have seen some signs early on, but the first signs were probably that she was a very argumentative type, and even though she was very charming to my sister and I, shortly after moving in with my dad, she started to have arguments with some of my dad's long-term friends.
About what?
Silly things, but my dad was so over the top with her that he was very quick to take her side to things, and he ended up losing a lot of long-time friendships, and so she began to isolate him.
Right. I'm glad you said that word because that sounds exactly what she was doing. And do you feel that she was doing that on purpose?
Yes. Looking back now, it becomes more apparent that was going on.
Okay. So now she's isolating Dad's friends. And you're so far away. You all are in Oregon, and you have siblings, Robin?
Yeah, so I have one sister, and we would visit a number of times during the year. But, it was a visit. It wasn't living here day to day to really be able to see and surprise them in seeing what was really going on.
So you got to meet the girlfriend.
Yes, we got to know her. We talked to her on the phone at least once or twice a week, so we really got to know her what we thought was very well.
Okay, so things seem to be going along fine. And then how long were they together before you really started having some concerns?
Probably 3 years.
Okay, so up to 3 years things seemed okay?
Yes.
Then what happened? Did you have any clue that besides the arguments with the friends that maybe they were isolating, was there anything going on either with the girlfriend that you discovered, or did you notice anything with your dad that seemed to be kind of off?
I think it was more her behavior. We got to see that she was the kind of person who starts arguments with people very easily. She was very money oriented, and my father was extremely generous. He paid for all of her lifestyle, health care, dental care, and bought her very lavish jewelry.
Wow.
Which we were supportive of everything, but it was a little hurtful because my mom never got that kind of very elaborate jewelry.
Okay, that's understandable.
But we were supportive of, he was so in love with her. Probably about 3 years into their relationship, we began to see her behavior and realize that she might not be the best thing for him. They had very few friends. My dad is very gregarious and very social. And so they weren't making new friends or even socializing with her friends. Here down in South Florida, they were involved with their club. My father played cards and had a lot of social activities that he was beginning more and more to withdraw from. So those types of behaviors, I think, were what we saw with him.
And that concerned you, of course.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork. You're not going to want to miss what happens next. We're going to talk about the girlfriend. This is like a soap opera, people. And we're going to talk about the girlfriend, what happened, and what Robin and her sister had to do. And we'll be right back, so stay tuned. We'll take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with you.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live. It's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides.
The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. Wandering is a common problem for people with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's also a problem for family members who care for them. Keeping them safe and secure means never letting your guard down. And even though deep down you know it's time, it hurts to have to ask for help. But it could hurt them even more if you didn't. We know. We understand.
65-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
And we're back, and thank you for joining us. Today I'm talking with Robin and Nick, and we are going to be talking more about the girlfriend. But before we get to that, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our newest local sponsor, Right at Home Home Care. And you heard their commercial. And if you're looking for someone to come and be right at home to help your loved one at home, you'll want to give them a call. They have local offices here, and that number is 561-910-1843. So call Right at Home, 561-910-1843, and you'll feel right at home having Right at Home. So I'm here with Nick and with Robin, and we're talking about Dad, who was living with a girlfriend for several years and becoming isolated. The girlfriend was isolating him from his friends, that he wasn't involved like before. And Robin, you shared with me during the break that he also started showing some signs of forgetfulness.
Yes. He was always incredibly good at numbers, and he could do all kinds of math in his head. And when we would go out to a restaurant, he could no longer calculate the tip. And there were other cues like that that really tipped us off.
So that was the beginning of you realizing that he's losing some memory and he's not having that executive function with being able to calculate the numbers and other things that he could always do. So
Yes.
that was like a little red flag for you.
Yes, yes.
So now that was a little red flag. Tell us about the big red flag.
The big red flag was that just earlier in the beginning of this year, it's amazing to think about how far we've come in just a year. But the girlfriend, we have other names for her, but we'll just call her the girlfriend.
Okay, that's good. I think we're regulated here.
It's a family show. We would talk to her on the phone all the time, as I mentioned, and she had started a fight with my sister over the phone. And it was kind of a silly thing, and it didn't really make much sense to us. And my dad was in the middle of it, and he didn't know which side to take. And so it got very emotional for all of us. And we really recognized that she was really manipulating my dad. And so my dad started saying that he really needed to take her side because she lives with him. So we knew that even though we had just gone to visit him about a month and a half before and everything seemed fine, other than some of the memory loss signs, my sister and I and my wonderful husband, Nick, flew down to visit him right away. And we knew something was going on, but it was hard to determine because so much was emotional.
And you're so far away.
Yes. So when we got to his house, he had an aide part-time helping him more with his physical rather than any kind of mental issues.
The live-in girlfriend wasn't really helping him too much or not enough.
Not enough.
Yeah, she was just helping him to his money, helping herself to his money.
Yes, that's true.
Not helping him, but helping herself to that.
Yes, and there was an incident where the aide that we had hired was being used by the girlfriend because my dad could no longer drive. And the aide was taking the girlfriend on her own personal social errands to her card game and to the hairdresser and other things, where my dad was left at home alone. And there was one situation where he fell because he was home alone and actually had to be hospitalized because of the fall.
Oh, no. And she's out having fun at his expense.
Yes.
Okay.
So we got a new aide, and that new aide was the one who, when we came down to visit, as soon as we met her in person, even though we had talked to her on the phone a number of times, when we met her in person, she took us aside away from the girlfriend and my dad, and she met us outside of my dad's house in this sort of like secret meeting. And she told us that she was very worried and she was very uncomfortable with the situation. She did not want to take the girlfriend on her social errands because she said it was not responsible for her as a nursing care professional to leave my dad home. And she recognized my dad was her patient.
Right.
And so she said
she felt like she was in the middle and torn, and she, actually she was very brave and very caring enough to give you that information.
Yes. She was worried for her job, so she really was taking a huge risk.
Right.
And she had taken notes, so she actually provided us with some notes of some of the awful things that she had seen. And so in so many ways, we were so thankful to her.
Were you shocked?
we were really shocked. My dad has diabetes, and it's quite severe, and she told us that this was just one of the things that just made us realize we have to do something urgently. That apparently the girlfriend, when she wanted things from my dad, would threaten him because she gave him the insulin. She wouldn't let the aides give him his insulin twice a day.
She threatened that
she would withhold his insulin.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
She held it over his head. I'm not going to give this to you if
Unless
you don't
do what I want.
Oh, man. Unbelievable. See, this is a story that I think a lot of people would probably say, oh, that would never happen. But things like this happen more than you realize.
Yes.
You know, you're just not there. And thank God for that caregiver who shared what was really going on, because if your dad's not getting his medicine, he might not be here today.
Yes.
So what did you do?
So that was shocking to us.
Of course.
And so we knew we had to take action. And so it was particularly, I don't know if there were anybody with a legal background out there, but both my parents had put in all the legal directives that a good estate planning person would want. So my sister and I were my dad's power of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
We had the living will, we had the healthcare surrogate, all the things that you would want. But the little soap opera part, to make it even more dramatic and unfortunately very true, the aide told us, and we were able to see evidence that despite my dad being very physically infirmed and highly immobile, I mean, he can barely walk with a walker, the girlfriend was planning she signed them up to take a cruise because she had heard that to circumvent the power of attorney and get full control over my dad, his person, and his finances, she was planning to take him on a cruise to marry him, because apparently on cruises, it's very easy to marry people. So she had put all the paperwork in to renew his passport. She bought him a whole bunch of new suits. He's a retiree. He really wasn't wearing very many suits, so she bought him very expensive suits, and she had everything all ready to go. And
she had a mission.
She did. So the aide actually told us that she had heard her talking to a travel agent, booking the cruise, and that she had planned to marry my dad and leave him and give all his money to her grandchildren.
Oh,
so that was
wow.
just heartbreaking.
Oh, my goodness.
So
wow.
She was threatening his life. We knew we had to do something. So we went to an attorney, and we did a lot of research with various attorneys and found an attorney who could help us, and he explained the guardianship process to us. And we were not familiar with that at all, because we thought everything was taken care of with the power of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to go through the guardianship process, and it was time-consuming and expensive.
Mm-hmm.
We had to go by the laws in Florida. Here we were 3,000 miles away. We had to learn all of that. But the good news is we were able to get my dad declared incapacitated, and I was able to become his guardian.
Oof. That I'm sure was a lot of headache and anguish for you.
Yes.
To go through all that and do that, and especially like you said, you're far away and trying to get all this coordinated. And it took a while probably for that to happen.
Yes, several months.
Several months, okay.
And a lot of money and time for
but
us.
But your dad's life was at stake,
Yes.
literally, figuratively and literally.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the first things we tried to do was to call Adult Protective Services. But there's not really, unless there's some really obvious situation where there's evidence of physical abuse, there's not much that they can really do to help.
Right.
And I know there are some the states now have some wonderful elder care laws, and elder abuse is a much more serious situation now. But we were in a gray zone and really couldn't do much.
So now that you're granted guardianship over your father, what did you do? Kick out the girlfriend? And
Well, even before that, we were able to talk to my dad and explain things to him. And over time, really just about a month, we were able to make sure that we brought in full-time aides who were absolutely wonderful. The aide who kind of brought all this to our attention is a terrific person. We're still very, very dear friends with her. She's sensational.
Was the girlfriend out the door at this point?
Yes.
Okay, so you had asked her to leave.
Yes. So
Okay.
we were able to, through this one aide, we got round-the-clock aides to help my dad, and that kind of made it so clear that he had all the care he needed, and the girlfriend really had no room in the picture. So that was really making it a lot easier. Also, once the girlfriend knew we were here and we had more of a local presence, it made it easier for her to, and again, she had her own home not very far away, so she had another place to
I
go.
hope you changed the locks on the doors.
Well, in some ways, the aides became really like guards.
Yeah, they were the guards. They knew that she wasn't allowed to have any contact with your dad.
Correct.
And at this point, because of your dad's, starting more and more memory loss, was he very upset about the fact that the girlfriend had to go, or was he accepting of that?
No, he was devastated because he really thought she was, they were in love. He thought it was so wonderful. He didn't understand. There were moments when he would understand and then he would be confused again.
And at this point, was your father actually diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia at this point, or did that come after?
Well, so we had been seeing a neurologist, and so we kind of escalated that, and the neurologist had us go through a number of different tests, blood work, CAT scan, a number of other things. And so we were shortly, in the midst of all that, I should say, able to have the neurologist look at all those tests and pull it all together. And that's when he said that my dad had both cerebral vascular dementia, which we knew, as well as the moderate stage Alzheimer's.
And then, of course, that result helped to cement the fact that, he needed the guardianship because he was at that point incompetent to make, good decisions for himself.
Yes.
Okay. So now the girlfriend's out the door, right?
Yes.
But that's not where the story ends. And we're going to take our next commercial break. And when we come back, you'll hear the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say. We'll be right back.
Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us. We know, we understand, we can help. Arden Courts. Wandering is a common problem for people with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's also a problem for family members who care for them. Keeping them safe and secure means never letting your guard down. And even though deep down you know it's time, it hurts to have to ask for help. But it could hurt them even more if you didn't. We know, we understand, we can help. Arden Courts.
If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
And we are back, and thank you again to our newest sponsor, Right at Home Home Care. And please give them a call. Tell them that you heard about them on the Caregiver Solutions Info Show, and they'll be happy to explain all their wonderful services that they can provide to you right at home. Their number is 561-910-1843. And now we're back with Robin and her husband, Nick, and we're talking about Robin's dad, who has Alzheimer's disease and vascular dementia. So we left off with now the girlfriend who was exploiting dad.
Yes.
And obviously there was a little bit of abuse there too, emotional abuse. And we don't even know if there was any physical abuse, but there was abuse and neglect and exploitation all involved. And you were able to get guardianship, and then you were able to kick the girlfriend out of your dad's house and get a full-time aide around the clock to help him.
Yes.
And now he's there, 6 months?
Yes.
Okay. And during that 6 months, what happened? Did you have more contact with your dad? Did he seem like he needed more help? Was he getting worse with his dementia?
So during that 6-month period of the round-the-clock aids, we felt that we were, it was really important for us to come down. So we were coming to visit him every month, every other month. And
from Oregon.
Yes. So it was very expensive.
Not a quick trip.
No. And a day just kills a day each way, just coming here. So we were able to have a better understanding of, and by seeing him and being shocked at his mental decline in just a 4-week period, and being able to notice just how infirmed he was becoming.
So every time you came, you realized that you probably needed to come more often.
Yes.
And then the more often you came, the more you saw the decline.
Yes.
Right?
So we saw both the memory issues and his state of confusion and his physical decline as well. So those had us very, very worried. And so because of that, we were thrilled. The aides we had were just wonderful, and we really felt like they became almost part of the family to us.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked to them. We talked to my dad. We talked to the aides every single day.
But something must have happened that caused you to have to make a different decision.
Yeah. So when we talked to the neurologist, going through the guardianship process, a number of people talked to us about how important it is to have socialization. And especially how we knew my dad, the extrovert, the sales executive, the very social person that he has always been, we knew, and other family and friends who don't live in the Florida area would tell us how it's such a shame that he sits at home all day watching television. It's amazing, some of the old shows that are on television still. But he was, even though the aides were wonderful and they took the extra effort to get him out, he'd go out to meals, he'd go out for physical therapy, but he didn't have very many friends left. And
the ex-girlfriend, pushed him all the way.
Right.
And, it's hard to make friends, and especially a lot of your friends at your dad's age have already passed before him too. So
yes.
You're right. It's your social network is shrinks as you get older. So you realize that Dad wasn't meeting with his peers and wasn't getting those opportunities to do things and be more involved rather than watch TV.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we just thought that was a very unhealthy situation, even though now his medical needs were being taken care of better than ever. And so we began to think about and have the tough conversation with him about moving to a place where he could have more going on.
Now, I know your dad, and I know you told me before that he's a sweetie pie, and he is a sweetie pie, but he's very stubborn also.
Yes.
So I can just imagine how he took to this conversation.
Well, he's always said, I want to die in this house.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew how he felt. And he has a first cousin who is even older than he is, and she's an amazing woman, and she was very, very close. They were almost like brother and sister, and she always advised him, and right through this whole process, she was a huge ally and really an advocate for us in trying to tell him he needed to sell the house and get done with it and move into a place where he would have more socializing.
And I know that wasn't just one conversation.
No.
Because somebody, that has dementia, because now he's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and vascular dementia, and, he's older and he's not thinking, properly, and he is not able to think about what is the best thing for him because of his cognitive impairments. So now you're trying to convince him what's the best thing for him. And being a stubborn person, I'm sure that wasn't an easy way to go.
Yes, it was very difficult. And my sister and I were just, he's still my dad. And so we still have that little girl kind of part to us. And so we felt, oh my God, we don't want to upset him.
But as a daughter towards your dad, and you have that daughter-dad relationship, were you aware, and this might be where Nick steps in and helps us answer this question, were you aware of how his cognitive impairments, how his Alzheimer's impacted the way he talked to you, the way he reacted, the way he thought, his thought process? Did you notice that it was different, or were you not really considering that part and you were just thinking about Dad? I mean, sometimes it's hard to really look at a situation objectively because you're the daughter.
Yes.
And you can give me your thoughts. I don't know, Nick, you're kind of more objective because you're on the outskirts, on the rim, looking in. You're obviously there. You're part of the family. But I know that you probably had your own thoughts about what you saw in the relationship. Can you share that?
Well, Marcia, it's exactly what you just said. And I observed for probably several years before Robin and her sister did that Bill was having cognitive impairments. He was losing his words for people, places, and things. But because of his very extroverted, outgoing, people-oriented personality, he had very powerful compensatory mechanisms. So he was very good at getting family members to finish his sentences. So it became almost a game. He would say one or two words that, the thing, or that guy, or the woman, or, that place. And the family members around him, because I understand, I went through this with my own mother. It's very difficult and painful to accept that your parent is ill, that your parent is not thinking clearly. It's a very painful, almost impossible realization to accept.
Mm-hmm.
So the family members around him, Rob and her sister, would very readily fill in the words. Oh, yeah, that's the place. They'd fill in the name of the place, the person, or the
they
thing,
wanted to help
and finish
them.
the sentences. And the neurologist asked us a question, well, when did you first notice this? When did this first start? And as Robin said, hindsight is 20/20, and it probably goes back about 5 years. It's probably about 5 years that he really had all of his marbles, and it was a gradual decline, a gradual slope from that point. But it was apparent to me over time, watching this, sort of being a few steps back, that with each visit, more and more words needed to be filled in, rather than one word out of 30, one word out of 20, one out of 10, and then almost every third word in a sentence needed to be filled in for him. So seeing that was pretty apparent to me. But the family members, again, were very happy to fill in those words, to compensate for him, and to play along with it. And I noticed that quite often, even recently, even today, quite honestly, when we visited him today, and he was very, very confused and not thinking clearly or rationally at all, Robin still tries to reason with him. She still tries to speak with him as if he's capable of rational understanding, rational thought, when clearly he isn't, and hasn't been for quite some time. And the response, as Robin said, well, she's his daughter. He's my dad. And I understand that. As I said, I went through it with my own mother. But one of the painful realizations is just because someone is your dad or your mother, it doesn't change the rules. It doesn't automatically make the disease go away. They still have the disease. They still have the dementia. And as painful as it is to accept, those are the facts.
Yeah, Dad's not really the same dad that she really grew up to know because of the disease. And thank you for sharing that, because, we see that quite often, that people on the outskirts, and there's the other levels of family sometimes see it before the person closest to the person that has the disease. Because of that, you want them, you wish them to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so thank you for sharing that. Do you agree with that, Robin?
Yes. And that's where it's been really, really so incredibly helpful to have Nick's perspective. And for him to remind me, that's one of the things now that my dad is in this wonderful place. I've seen how everyone deals with it, and I was always trying to correct him and remind him of all the facts. And it's so much more relaxing, less stressful, kind of fighting the disease, and instead recognizing and just letting it go and letting him have the confused, perhaps, thoughts that he does, but it's okay. And it makes him so much happier and at ease, and he can feel me relaxing as well.
And when did you come to that realization that was the way to relate to your dad? And first part of the question. Second part of the question is, how did you learn to do that?
I really argued with him and corrected him right up until we began looking at places to put him. And when we went to assisted care and independent living places, And in particular, when we saw residents interacting with staff at Arden Courts, that's when we got to see, no, people are not correcting them and reminding them of the facts and what day it is and what year it is, but instead being pleasant and happy and loving and supportive and giving them the emotional happiness. It was really such a learning. It seems so obvious now, but at the time it was a real, just eye-opener for us.
A different way to react to your dad to create less frustration, really, for both of you.
Yes.
And you learned that when you started realizing that there was maybe a better way to care for him rather than being at home where he was isolated. So you began looking for places, and that must have not been easy either because there's so many options.
Yes, especially in South Florida.
Mm-hmm.
We had thought about moving him to be closer to us, but there were a number of things. He always loved this area. And we have some family that come here as snowbirds, so they're here sometime during the year. And the climate here is just so much easier for him. And so those were a number of the factors. So we began to look into places and Nick did a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of the research. And that's probably another tip I can say is rely on your support network as a caregiver. Don't take it all on. And I realized that I'm just so emotionally involved, it's hard for me to really see things clearly.
That's a good point. Let other people help you. You can't do it all by yourself. Matter of fact, last week's show, we had an author of a book. It's called Cruising Through Caregiving and How to Create a Situation Where There's Less Stress in Your Life. And we talked about relying on your team, your crew, to help you, because one person can't always do it all without consequences. So you went through the process of looking and you found...
So we looked at a number of different places, and we were originally going to look at 8 places, and we tend to be very thorough in how we do things. And we found that it was trickier than we thought, in that there were a lot of places that required very independent living, and my dad, with his physical disabilities and lack of mobility, they were not set up. They were multiple stories. You had to take an elevator. You had a very nice quality of life, but it was too independent, more than he could handle.
Right.
And then there were the places that had these independent living stages, and then they also had a memory ward. And it just felt to us as if the memory ward was an afterthought.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad is not in the stage where he needs just to be sitting in a wheelchair listening to music all day. He interacts, he has conversations, and we wanted to fulfill that social need that he had.
Sure, give him that stimulation and socialization, because he could still benefit from that.
Yes, yes, that's what we really felt was lacking with the aides being at home all day.
Right.
And so, frankly, when we went to Arden Courts, it was, it sounds like a commercial, but really it's the truth. When we just felt like it was the right number of people, it was the kind of people that are there as residents. It just was a natural fit, and it was a place that specializes in the things that my dad needed. So it made us feel so good as a family that we found the right place for him.
Wonderful. Well, we're glad that you did too. And so the time came for Dad to actually make the move, and we're gonna get to the other revelation in just a minute. We're gonna go to our last commercial break, and when we come back, we'll learn how Dad transitioned into his new home, and you'll want to stay tuned for this. It's really interesting. We'll be right back.
Do you need the advice of a
Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know We understand. We can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, look to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know. We understand. We can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
Any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Hi, and we're back, and I'm talking with Robin and her husband, Nick, and if you have not been with us until now, I will just bring you up to date that Robin's dad suffers with Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. He was exploited by a girlfriend at his home, which they got rid of because Robin got guardianship, and Dad lived at home with 24-hour care, but he was missing out on socialization opportunities and a lot of stimulation that he really needed. So Robin began looking for the appropriate place for her dad and happened to find Arden Courts, which we're very glad that you did. But now comes the time when it's actually to move in. And so I'll come into the story right here because I had the pleasure of coming to Dad's home, and you all were in town. Your sister was in town, and to do an assessment, to meet Dad, to see how he was, how he walked, how he talked, and get a feel for his personality, everything that you told me about him prior to coming. And I have to tell you, he was the sweetest, nicest man, and he is a big flirt too. So I can see why the ladies were after him, right? And so I saw that he was actually a perfect candidate for coming to Arden Courts because he would benefit from everything, that we had to offer him. So we made the decision to move him after we got all the paperwork done with you, and the day came, and I know that there was a little bit of nervousness on the family's part, right?
Yeah, more than a little bit.
Okay, so tell me about how you felt at that point, right before Dad was to move in.
Well, I couldn't believe that we would be able to get him to come to Arden Courts. And so...
Why?
Because he had always said that he wanted to die in his house. And I think a lot of it, I've read a lot, but, in his mind, as an older person, change was just devastating for him. Mm-hmm. And then also, the second is that he was thinking of the nursing home stereotype of his generation, back 50, 40 years ago.
That's so good.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, because he... had been so clear about not wanting to come, it was really helpful to work with you, Marcia, in figuring out how are we going to get him there.
We came up with a story.
We did, and I felt so guilty about it all. But because he was going for physical therapy, and he had been going, it was really not much physical therapy, but it was an opportunity for him to socialize with people. So we told him that there was a new physical therapy place that he was going to go to check out. And it was an unusually rainy Florida day when we pulled up to Arden Courts, and there you were with a big red umbrella to meet my dad. And the fact that you have beautiful blonde hair did not hurt.
Well, whatever I have to do, whatever works. I have to just share with you, your dad is not my only boyfriend at Arden Courts. Nonetheless, we got him out of the car. He's coming with me. And at this time, are you still feeling nervous?
Oh yes, I was just terrified. Again, because he's still, I'm still Daddy's girl, and he's still, I still fear him being upset.
That he was going to be mad at you.
Yes, yes.
Like, what did you do to me?
Right, exactly. So it was so helpful. It was really unique. A lot of the other places that we looked into before Arden Courts were not willing to work with us in handling that whole emotional situation, and being kind of part of the team to get that done for us. It was more the idea that you'll handle it. You'll have to figure something out. So that was another thing that really made Arden Courts special for us.
So Dad got in the door. He came with me, arm in arm.
You dazzled him.
And we walked in the back, and he joined.
There was a party going on.
There was we happened to have a party going on. He joined the activities. He went right in. He sat down. I introduced him to the staff and to some of the other residents that were sitting by him. Told him I'd be back to take him to lunch, and he was all smiles. And I came back to the lobby, and you guys looked terrified, like, what happened? And I said, he's fine. And it is so emotional for families. It's like dropping them off, and now you're giving your precious dad to the care of literally strangers at this time. But you had confidence in the strangers because you know about our reputation, and you knew about our caregivers and how they are, and you checked us out, so you know that you were doing the right thing, but it still makes it hard for you.
It was still hard, yes.
So then what happened? You went back to Oregon?
So we went back home, and we'd call him, and he sounded really happy. I mean, within a few days, he was still confused. There were times when he thought he was going to be staying there permanently, and other times when he asked me why we had brought him so many clothes, because he thought he was just at Arden Courts for a brief stay. But probably the second phone conversation I had with him, when he came to the phone, he answered it, he knew it was me, and he said, "I love it here." And that just was such a heartwarming and wonderful thing to hear.
I know there's a transition time when someone moves in until they get used to their new surroundings. And typically it's a 30-day total transition time until they really acclimate 100%, where they know that this is home. But the first few days are critical. And especially for men, they're a little bit more macho, and sometimes women take to it faster because they're social. But the fact that your dad was a social person, it took him not very long at all to actually acclimate and allow himself to let other people, be around him and start that interaction. So about a week after your dad, it was a week, wasn't it? About a week after he came to Arden Courts and you're back in Oregon, you sent me an email.
Well, so after that phone call with him where he said, "I love it here," it just touched my heart. I just felt so great. And so I sent you an email, and I just said, I titled the email subject, "What a Difference a Week Makes." Because in just a week, we went from being so scared and so worried and feeling so guilty about turning him over and putting him in someplace other than his own home, to knowing that he was in this wonderful place where the quality of his life is better than it's been in years.
Now, how long ago was that? How long has Dad been at Arden Courts?
So it's been, I guess, a little over a month, about 5 or 6 weeks.
And you're here again in South Florida to visit him. And you saw him today, and
it's terrific. It's exactly what we hoped for. He has a lot of friends. He socializes with people all the time. There are a lot of activities scheduled all day long, and he is so interested in going to all the activities. He's participating. He's out and about. If he's not at an activity, he sits in the porch style area so he can wave and see everybody. He is in physical therapy now, really getting good physical therapy, wonderful medical attention, and all in all, I mean, we're just so happy.
And you don't have to worry when you're not here.
Yes.
And that's probably one of the best parts.
Yes.
Well, I have to tell you, when I see your dad, he's very content and he's settled in very well. And I'm so happy not only that you found us, that we could help care for Dad, but for you all to come in here to tell your story, because I think a lot of people have thought about this, and they obviously have the same types of feelings, and I think, you sharing that is going to help a lot of people. So thank you again for being with us. And I want to thank you all for tuning in today. And don't forget to call Art and Course to get your free copy of the 36-hour day. You can call them at 888-478-2410, 888-478-2410. Get your free copy. We'll be back next week, same place, same time. In the meantime, don't forget, give somebody a hug, because they need it, and so do you.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teele. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not